guys, it's Cece, and today I am here to talk about some things that are very near and dear to my heart. Today I want to talk about the new movie Love, Simon, as well as the incredible book Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. So, I have things to say. We are going to start with a non-spoiler portion for the book and the movie, but then I am going to gush many spoilery feelings, and you will be warned. Don't worry, I know the movie isn't even out everywhere yet, and I'm really sad about that. I hope that those of you around the world get to see it soon, because it is a wonderful movie. But before I get into all of that, yeah, let me talk about this book and this movie as I have experienced them. So first and foremost, I love both the book and the movie, but in different ways. Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda is a book that has a lot of love in my heart. I read it about 1.5 years ago originally, and I just reread it like 3 days ago. I love it, and it makes me happy. It's a sweet contemporary love story with a gay main character. But I actually read a lot of those. We are nowhere near the number of stories about queer teens that I want to have, but because of who I am, because of what I read, I experience a lot more queer love stories than I think a lot of other people do. So while I love it so much, and I recommend it all the time, it doesn't affect me emotionally. And I am not speaking for everyone when I say that. I know that this has really hit a lot of people emotionally, and I am so glad for you if it did. The movie I love because I don't have this experience a lot with film. I do not get to see myself in love stories on screen, especially not in a wide release kind of way. Yes, because I'm gay, I track down movies, as many as possible that I can watch, about queer people falling in love, but it's drastically different than having access to a story about two boys falling in love on a big screen in a theater full of people. So while I love the book, I love it so much, watching the movie in theater for the first time was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, and it's the reason I cried through half of the movie. In general, both of these stories make me incredibly happy, and their similarities lie in their sweet love story and in their ability to capture the way that teenagers speak. That's a talent that Becky Albertalli really has it down. Both of her books that I have read just have this way of understanding how teens interact, and I think that that has translated incredibly well into film. So my official non-spoiler review of each is that I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars when I read it originally. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars this time. It's a wonderful love story that I cannot help but recommend at every chance. The movie is a deeply important one that marks a change, I hope, in the movies that we get to see ourselves in. It has a gay director and multiple queer actors, some of whom came out over the course of filming this movie because it inspired them to come out. Nick Robinson, who plays Simon, his brother came out to him over the course of filming this movie. There is so much love and dedication, and it comes through in every single minute of this film. So my official review is please go see it. I've seen it twice. I'm going to see it again soon. I love it. I love it. And now on to talking about spoilery stuff. So if you do not want to know the end of this book or this movie, please turn off the video. I'm going to be talking about who Blue is. I'm going to be talking about some of the finer plot details, so turn away. This is your warning. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is my theater experience seeing Love, Simon, or I guess my theater experiences, because I've had 2 of them. The first time I saw Love, Simon was in an early release. It was one of those things that was happening. There were a lot of screenings happening everywhere to get buzz going for the movie, and my sister and I went at the end of January. The theater was absolutely full, and it was one of the most wonderful theater experiences I've had. There were numerous other queer people in the audience besides myself, and we were all emotionally compromised. The lights came up at the end of this film, and every single person there, queer or not, was crying. It's just one of those movies that you recognize as it's happening, that you haven't seen anything like it before, and it it affected me so deeply. As we were leaving the theater, there were a group of guys who sat behind me, all in their 30s, all pretty clearly gay or queer, and they were all crying and talking about how much they needed this movie when they were younger. It was an amazing way to see this movie the first time because I couldn't help but think the same thing while I was sitting there watching it. The second time I saw this movie, I was in an empty theater. Just my aunt and I went, but it was still a remarkable experience because my aunt was there with me. Simon has so many moments of coming out to his family, which are experiences I identify with since I am out to my whole family, and to share that with a person I love and a person who accepts me and loves me was just a really special experience. As some general notes, the guy who plays Bram, whose name I am suddenly forgetting and I'm very, very angry with myself, he is adorable. He is so sweet. His smile, when he smiles in this movie, my heart, like, increases in size. So, like, that's your note. Bram is perfect. I love him very deeply, and this comment was for me, but also a little bit for you out there, Haley. I understand what you mean when you tweet about this boy's smile. It's good. Similarly, I think that Nick Robinson, who plays Simon, does an incredible job, and he brings a lot of heart and love to the character. He makes Simon come to life. Simon's family is wonderfully cast. His friends are all wonderfully cast. Altogether, it's just a really, really good group of people who have gotten together to make this movie. And iced coffee made me burst into tears, which I think says something. Tears were streaming down my face. I like leapt into my sister's lap and I was like, there's gonna be a fifth iced coffee, and then I burst into tears. So now into some actual discussion of the movie and how it relates to Simon versus the Homo Sapiens agenda. So some differences. Let's discuss what got changed. One of the main things is that Simon's family is a little bit different. In the movie, he does not have an older sister named Alice. This didn't really affect me all too deeply. I like Simon's relationship with his older sister in the book, but because she is away at school for a lot of it, I don't really think it affected the storyline overall. I think that we still got enough of Simon and who he was with just his parents and his one sister, Nora. So of course it's always sad to see things cut, but I understand the decision and I was completely fine with it. Leah's entire relationship with Simon is somewhat fundamentally altered. So we should talk about that. So I've seen some people say that this movie erases Leah's bisexuality. What I have to say to that is, yes, Leah is bisexual, but this is an adaptation of Simon Versus, and in that book, Simon and the rest of the characters do not know that Leah is bi. Also, her having a crush on a dude does not negate her bi-ness. So, to people who are feeling upset about that, I wasn't upset by that because it's not a part of the book. In the movie, Leah is in love with Simon. So this was possibly my least favorite change that was made between the book and the movie, just because I really prefer platonic relationships in YA contemporary. I think that we don't get them as much, especially between best friends. It always gets pushed into romance territory, and so I was a little bit miffed to see that best friend relationship not be platonic, at least on one side. However, here's the reason I think that they changed this. In the book, there is a whole other storyline that gives Simon and Leah a reason to have a falling out. Simon goes to the gay bar restaurant with Nick and Abby. There's a lot of closing Leah out over the course of the book. I think the movie had to give a lot more reasoning and background as far as why Leah and Simon would have a falling out, because it would be a very strange tangent for the movie to go on if they'd gone with the way the book goes. So I understand you need to invent new points of conflict. I didn't adore it, but it also doesn't deeply bother me and it didn't really affect my viewing experience. The thing about this movie is anything I say negatively about it, like, it's negative, but also I don't care. I gave this movie an almost perfect score on Letterboxd and I loved it with my whole heart. So I was annoyed they changed it, but I understand, because I understand how movies and movie adaptations work. We could also talk about the differences with Blue. Blue and the way that he is introduced is a little bit different in the movie. I think overall it works, and by the end of the movie I felt like I knew Bram as a movie character who was different than the book character. This was not the same characterization of Bram, I think, that was in the book. There is the wonderful detail of Simon kind of getting a crush on any dude who's nice to him, which is such a gay mood. Let's be real about that. But associating different faces with Blue doesn't change the fact that you're still learning exclusively about him through the emails. You don't learn a lot about the other characters that Simon has a crush on. Lyle and Cal, they just sort of become faces for the facts that you know about Blue. And I think that their love story is implied through passing time. Of course, there's just sort of this implied a lot of time happens over the course of this movie. I don't remember what the exact count is at the beginning for when Simon writes down how many days to graduation, but it's in the high hundreds, and at the end of the movie, he's writing down 17 or 18, so, like, a lot of time passes over the course of this movie. I think that we're supposed to glean their relationship in that it has lasted over a long period of time, but also in that it's really intense when you finally find someone else that you can connect with, and to have that understanding and that honesty with another person for the first time, that's an intense feeling. So Simon falling for Blue when he did, it made sense to me in the movie because, like, I get it. I 100% get it, Simon. I also want to talk about Ethan, who is the only other out gay kid at school. This is a character who doesn't exist in the book at all, but I want to talk about why I love that it was added in the film. I think that Ethan existing as an out kid, a super feminine out kid, and the fact that the main characters in the movie see him being bullied adds a needed context for why Simon doesn't want to come out yet. Obviously, everyone comes out in their own time, at their own pace, but there's a reluctance in the book and there's a reluctance in the movie for why he hasn't come out yet, and I think that it just adds another layer of him not being ready. It's seeing every day that things are going to change. Ethan has a different experience of this high school than Simon does because he is out and Simon is not. Also because he presents very feminine and is black. Like, the movie does not get into the politics of that because Ethan is a side character, and that definitely puts him forward for being a lot more bullied than I think Simon ever would be. But I think Ethan's existence helps you to understand Simon's point of view, and I think it's also there, I'll be honest, I think it's there for straight people to understand that, like, you know, Martin at the end, after Simon is getting all of this shit thrown at him, Martin goes, "I didn't think people still did that." That's why Ethan is there, because people like Martin don't think that, like, bullying and bigotry still happen. As far as some of the queer rep, I was sad that didn't happen, but, like, I understand why it didn't happen. I was sad we didn't get any queer girl rep. I know this is a Hollywood film, so why would I ever expect there to be queer women, but, you know, it would have been nice. There's a teeny tiny scene in the book that I love after Simon has come out, that he says that two lesbians he's never met before come to his locker and they give him hugs and give them their numbers if he ever wants to talk, and, like, that's very realistic. And I know having a scene like that, again, really interrupts the flow of a movie, but that kind of thing, like, we know that there's another queer guy at the school, so where are the queer girls? Just a thing. I was also kind of sad that we didn't get to see Cal's coming out because it introduces a word like bisexuality. Cal is bisexual in the book, and his coming out is kind of like, it happens, but it's not as big a deal. It would have been nice to still have that moment. But the fact that this was a feature film from a major company with a gay main character and multiple queer sides, who were also people of color, like, I'm still pretty impressed with the things that we have. I'm gonna talk about Martin for just a second because it took me, it took me seeing the movie, rereading the book, and seeing the movie again for me to really determine my feelings on how he is treated in the movie. My memory of it the first time I saw the movie was I kept feeling like they were being too easy on Martin. They were making it too possible for the audience to forgive him for blackmailing Simon. And then I reread the book, and there are a lot of moments where Simon kind of almost likes Martin. He almost forgets that he has this terrible relationship with this kid. And here's what I think ultimately balances it out. I think that they are easier on Martin over the course of the movie, but I think what he does is far worse, which is what ultimately gives an audience the chance to be like, this is not an acceptable person. In the book, he does a shitty thing where he outs Simon with kind of this annoying post, but the movie, with him actually posting their emails, it takes it to another degree of unacceptable. And so, in the long run, I think that it really balances that character out from being a little bit more likable to being like absolutely not. Also, I think making him likable in the movie is useful in that it shows that even people who are likable do really terrible stuff and can still be like not understanding, and they can be gross, and you want to like Martin because he's the nerdy guy who wants to get the girl, and we've seen that in so many rom-coms, and that's what genre Simon is. Martin is the nerdy guy who should get the girl at the end of the movie, but it points out that Martin's kind of a gross dude, and he has a lot of learning and growing to do, which hopefully he will do, but like, that guy from the other rom-coms, he's not a good guy. So I also liked it for that, because I think that there was more going on with that character and playing with stereotypes and rom-com tropes. As far as the family, I adored them. Their characterization is very different, I think, than it is in the book. Nora especially. Nora, I think, is younger. She's not edgy. She's into cooking, which is a very different vibe than she has in the book. And I think that Simon's parents get different characterizations, but actually, I prefer Simon's movie family to his book family. I connected with them more, and I sobbed through every single scene, but namely, I sobbed through Jennifer Garner's scene and Josh Duhamel's scene, just because they were pitch perfect. Every time Jennifer Garner says, "You can exhale now," I exhale, but it's legitimately in a full-on sob. Like, I make an audible sound every time I hear that line as I go, so I think that they're wonderful. So I'm running kind of low on time. This is already going to be a very long video, but people wanted me to talk about the big reveal. Blue's identity, Bram walking up and seeing Simon for the first time, which is incredibly more public in the movie than it is in the book. And here's where I want to talk about the fact that I think Bram and his characterization is different. If this situation had happened to book Bram, I don't think he would have been ready to walk in front of everyone and have a big scene. I think he needed to have a more personal connection with Simon first before he was ready for that. And I don't think that you need that with movie Bram. I think he's a different character. He's slightly more extroverted. And so that's the other reason I'm okay with Bram's characterization being different, is because this ending is kind of needed. Here are my two versions of this reveal. My issues with it, which I understand, and if people have those issues, I think that's totally fair of you, and what I actually wound up thinking. So the reveal being public, it could make you uncomfy, because it immediately presents this opportunity for a lot of the other teens that Simon and Bram go to school with to immediately sexualize this male-male couple, which is a situation that happens so often to queer dudes. Like, especially that girl who's filming them until Leah is like, "No, you're not going to film them, these are real dudes." That's the kind of thing I'm talking about with it being an incredibly public reveal. It turns them into a spectacle and into a show. And I can understand why people might be uncomfortable with that. Here is why I'm okay with it. Because this is a rom-com. That's it. That's my whole reason. I love this genre. I've been watching rom-coms my entire life. It's one of my favorite types of movie, which is why I think it's so meaningful to me to finally see, like, gay characters have a rom-com, because I love the rom-com. And the point is that at the end, there is a crescendo. Them getting together is dramatic because it is the point that you as an audience have been waiting for the entire film. If this had been a different kind of movie, I think that they could have pulled off the more subtle, sweet version that happens in the book, where it is just Simon and Bram. But I think for a movie like this, a movie of this scope, what you are expecting to see and what you deserve to see is the same rom-com ending that every other straight couple ever in film has gotten. You deserve a guy running up to a Ferris wheel, declaring his feelings, and you deserve them kissing while everyone claps, because I was clapping, my theater was clapping, we were cheering. It was an experience. This is a Bram who dressed up like post-presidency Barack Obama, got drunk, and sang karaoke next to his crush. It's a different Bram, and it's a slightly different Simon. Two boys who have fallen in love and are ready to do the big get-together. So ultimately, I was over the moon for the scene because it was a rom-com and because it was a rom-com finale that I had been waiting for so long to see. There were a couple of other questions I got. I'm going to try to remember them. I'm going to try to go through them real fast. They're mostly from Sylvia, who asks such interesting, thought-provoking questions. This could probably be its own video, but she asked me, first of all, when I started crying in the movie, when did I start crying the first time? The second time was different. I think the first time I saw it, I honestly got I did start crying, but I got a little teary during the scene when, Simon's dad makes a joke about the contestant on The Bachelor being really obviously gay, and Simon kind of sinks in on himself, just because, like, I've been there. That's happened to me. It delayed me recognizing who I was and being able to tell other people who I was, so that got me a little, like, misty the first time I saw the movie. When I saw it the second time, I can definitely tell you that it's when everything starts kind of going wrong for Simon, and then I don't stop from then. Like, when he is outed, that's when the sobbing begins. And then it doesn't stop. It goes up and down, like when he talks to his parents, then I'm sobbing more, and then I kind of mellow out. And then, you know, it does that. I also think I cried the first time when he came out to Abby. I forgot about that one. Maybe that's the first time? I've taken too long on this question. I cried a lot, okay? Sylvia also asked if I thought the own voices aspect of the filmmaking made it more impactful than the book because it's not own voices. This is such a hard question to answer, and the problem is that I was absolutely more deeply emotionally impacted by the movie than the book, and I've been attributing that to the different mediums and just the fact that I've never seen a movie like this before. But it could be because it was in the hands of a gay director, a guy who knew what he was doing, and that's probably why this movie has the ring of authenticity to it that it does. There are so many aspects of the movie that just get it. I've seen in a lot of places that after the director saw the final cut of the movie for the first time, even he cried because it was a movie that he needed to see. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what made the difference, is the people who were telling the story, but I'm not sure. And I think it's going to take a lot more gay movies coming out before I determine the answer to that question. Okay, I think that there were other questions, but I really need to wrap up now after talking about this for as long as I have. Have you seen the movie yet? Did you like it? Please, please gush with me about the movie. I cannot wait to go see it again and again. I keep listening to the soundtrack. Please talk to me about anything and everything Love, Simon, or Simon Versus. Also, have an Oreo on me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!